Hey guys, how you doing today? Just on my way home and just went picked up some supplies, right? Good to have supplies, good to have stuff to survive, live, right? Do your stuff. Thought I'd do a recording. Not much going on, honestly, in the news. They got that boat out of the Suez Canal. Congratulations, we did it. Took them way shorter than they thought it would. So much for the idea that the CIA is plotting to blockade the Chinese trade route between China and Europe. Nah, they would have done more than a couple of days if that was the case. Unless they're trying to say to China, hey China, we could do this at any moment, you know. We could if we wanted to. No, just looks like stupid humans being stupid humans. Bernie Sanders down in Alabama, joining the unionizing workers down there. God bless him. God bless that whole movement. The attempt to actually, help people do nice things. But that really is like what's going on today. So it's kind of a continuation of old stories. And so when you got these sorts of days where there's not much that you can really talk about, I think that gives me an opportunity to talk about something that's just kind of banging around in my head, right? And as you saw with the title of this video, it's going to be The Americans Are the Nazis on the World Stage, right? There's a controversial statement if it's ever been said, but I think it's absolutely and fundamentally the truth, that the Americans are acting like the Nazis on the world stage. I've been doing a lot of reading recently about what happened to Libya, right? Libya has just kind of gotten washed away in this massive, large-scale war of aggression that America is inflicting on us all, right? So I'll give you a little bit of history about what happened in Libya and what's going on in Libya now. So Libya in like the 1950s, up until the 1950s, was a monarchy. It was ruled by a king, right? And Gaddafi joins together with his forces and they stage a bloodless coup against this monarch, right? Basically saying, hey, no more monarchy. How about that? Get out of here. And they create a new government based on principles of anti-imperialism and socialism, right? Gaddafi gets really highly criticized by Western forces for funding anti-imperialist movements, right? Like he's along with the Palestinians, he's along with all of the Irish independence movement, right? Which was crazy to learn that he was actually funding and helping arm the Irish independent movement. Okay. And, but most importantly, under Gaddafi, Libya becomes like the fifth best, the people of Libya become like the fifth best paid people, like their income wage raises significantly. Their quality of life improves drastically. Gaddafi goes after legislation that existed under the monarchs that was sexist, so against women, this sort of thing. He dismantles that kind of stuff and creates a more vibrant society. There's this great video online that you can find where Gaddafi was actually celebrating the achievement of eliminating homelessness in Libya, right? He actually said that he was not going to give a house to his own father until everyone in Libya had a place to live. And he made good on that promise, and he did it, right? And he's like in a car driving around Libya, and people are hollering at him and celebrating, and he's waving, and just, you can see that the elation of the joy of creating a more stable society. This is a great chart. Just go to the Wikipedia page for Libya and Gaddafi at this point, where it shows that the economy of Libya under Gaddafi was way, way stronger and way, way better. And how did he do it? Well, he nationalized huge sections of the economy. He nationalized huge segments of the oil sector, right? He made it all state-run, right? And so the Americans, of course, right, they get tired of him after a period of time, as they do with all socialists, as they do with all people trying to do any kind of communist sort of thing. Oh, real windy here, guys. Sorry, I don't have my stupid headphones, so I'm sorry if it's super windy in your ears today. Oh, man, March, April, it's just windy, and it just seems to be nothing I can do about it. So what happens in 2011? right? So we're talking like 3 years after the invasion of Iraq. Oh, sorry, 3 years after the invasion. I'm thinking of the 2008 financial collapse. Ugh. So the invasion of Iraq happens in 2001, and so 10 years after the invasion of Iraq, after they destroy Iraq, destroy Afghanistan, destroy these regions completely, right? So already we're looking at the Americans being Nazis on the world stage. They had no reason to go into Iraq. They had no reason to go into Afghanistan. They had no reason at all except to just claim land, right? To just take it for themselves, steal oil, steal resources, which has all been affirmed by Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump's presidency absolutely affirmed that all of this was the case. Incidentally, if you're a person that pops out of these videos at around this time, just leave a like, leave a subscription. Thanks for coming. Glad to have you. So, poor Libya, right? Poor Libya. Libya's doing great, right? The people of Libya are improving. They're getting more freedom under Gaddafi, right? Gaddafi's not a perfect leader, obviously, but he's certainly better than a monarchical king that's oppressing his own people and stealing resources for himself, right? And what happens? Well, the U.S. funds rebel forces, as they do, right? The U.S. Stages an intervention in Libya. They bomb the hell out of it. They invade it, right? They murder Gaddafi. You can watch that video, right? There's literally a video of Gaddafi being murdered by rebel forces, right? They kill him with a sword up his rectum, no less, in absolutely brutal and barbaric fashion. And now what's going on in Libya, right? Libya's been completely destroyed, right? It's essentially being harvested by neoliberal parasites, by these fascists, the Americans, who, and even worse of it all, there are literally like open air slave trading markets now in Libya, right? And it's as clear as it can be. It's as clear as it can be that before the Americans went in and deposed Gaddafi, the Libyans were doing very well, right? They had eliminated homelessness, literacy had gone up, life expectancy was going up, and had gone up. People's income was going up. People's social freedom was improving, right? Every single vector on every single line, the Libyan people were doing better under Gaddafi. It was very obvious. It was very, 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 very clear to anyone who actually looks into this. And this kind of caricature that we get here in the West of Gaddafi being some kind of dictator or horrible tyrant. Of course, they're going to say that about somebody who's anti-imperialist and fighting against American interests. The Americans are the Nazis on the world stage. Like, of course, they're going to say this kind of stuff about Gaddafi. And then the Americans go in, they blow the place up, as they do, right? To steal oil, as they do. And now the place is just a ruin, right? It's just a ruin. And this is what America does. This is what America does. And now their ambition is getting to be even larger because they're pointing this ambition towards China, right? Because for the last 30 years, 40 years, it's been going on forever, 50, 60, 70 years. It's mainly been about stealing oil, right? It's mainly been about stealing oil. That if we can control the oil supply, if we can dominate and own the rest of the world and control the world's oil supply, then we can rule the world, right? That kind of full-scale Nazi ambition of world domination, right? But now they're looking at China, and China does have oil, sure, but now they're looking at China, and their ambitions are getting much higher, right? Because they don't want to have a competitor, right? And so they're willing to like waste an entire generation of people to destroy China if they can, even if it means destroying themselves, which it likely will. Oh, and even worse than this, I got to bring up Richard Nephew, right? Like this idea that Americans always spew when they're talking about these wars that they inflict on other people. They constantly say things like, "Oh, well, our intentions are good," right? Like we're trying to do good in the world, all this kind of stuff. Go take a look at a fellow named Richard Nephew. This is a guy who created the sanctions plan for Iran, right? And he's very upfront about it. It reads like a torture document, right? How to inflict pain, increasing the pain, make them beg, make them plead, right? And forget this idea that the Americans are targeting these sanctions against oligarchs or any of this kind of stuff. They are specifically planning these sanctions, and they are specifically arranging these sanctions to maximize damage to the poorest people in the nation. That's what they are doing. You can go read what Richard Nephew says. You can go read what he talks about, right? Just do a Google search of Richard Nephew. The Gray Zone does a wonderful expose of Richard Nephew and talks about him very openly about, and he's essentially a torturer, right? Like, he's essentially like these, and it's no surprise that America, like back during the Bush era, there was this big conversation about torture, right? Extraordinary rendition or whatever propaganda phrase they used for it, but it was torture, right? And there's this great movie called The Torture Report, but the idea that America has actually stopped torturing people, like maybe they're not grabbing people and like straight up waterboarding them, but you know what they are doing, right? They're systemically creating economic systems to maximize harm to the populace, and then reveling in it, right? They're celebrating the pain that they're inflicting on women and children and people of foreign nations, and it's despicable and it's disgusting, right? And for some reason, we are supposed to give America a pass, right? We're supposed to stand here and be like, oh yeah, they're acting rationally. No, they're not. They're Nazis on the world stage. They're and what they're doing is senseless. It has a senselessness to it, because all the war and the devastation and the destruction that they're bringing into the world, right? Destroying nations and erecting slave camps and putting sanctions on everything. Like, it backfires. It backfires in an enormous way, because eventually, like, if you put sanctions on everybody, like right now America has sanctions on like a third of the world, right? Eventually there does come a point where if you have sanctions on the entire world, you're the one that's isolated, right? And that's exactly what's going to happen to America. That there will come a point when the rest of the world just simply stops communicating with them, and they just come to see what I see in America, which is that America are the Nazis, right? They're the Nazis on the world stage, and they're not going to suddenly, stop. That's the thing that's really scary. Like, I remember growing up being asked, like, well, what would you do if you were living in a society that was taken over by the Nazis? Well, you know exactly what you would do if you were living in a society that was taken over by the Nazis, because that's exactly what's happened to you, right? That's exactly what's happened to you. And what you're doing now is exactly what you would do if it was Hitler or if it was any of these other guys, right? So what should we do? Right? Instead of the nothing that we are doing, well, we should organize under third-party, non-affiliated political movements. I have Socialist Action down in the description below, right? We should organize in voting blocks, organize in groups to fight against capitalism explicitly, because capitalism has given rise to this sort of death cult of Nazism, right? Okay, this is the end of this video. If you've made it to the end of this video, you've got to subscribe. You do, right? If you're listening to this right now, you have to subscribe. Those are the rules. Please like it. Please share it. Please leave a comment below. You guys are really doing wonderfully out here. The world is crazy. There is the largest military in the world are the Nazis. They are explicitly going around and destroying everything and gaslighting you while they're doing it. Don't let them gaslight you, right? Stop aligning yourself with these guys, straight up. Like, we need to be fighting tooth and nail against these guys. We can't, and we can't let them control the narrative of our own lives. Good luck. We're going to need it.